Hello, folks. Hello and welcome. We've got a banger tonight. This is going to be a fun one. The Techthusiasm home theater is finishing its end game level upgrade here. The NZ900, the JVC NZ900 arrived today, dropped it off earlier, got it cracked out of the box after dinner. It's sitting right up there, right through that little porthole. I've done only the minimum required elements to basically get it shooting, get an image up on the screen. I love doing these kinds of live streams. So we're going Monday Night Raw tonight. Raw setup, raw settings, out of the box. Let's go through a whole bunch of stuff. Talk about the new things that the NZ does. Explore the menus. Get it set up in conjunction with the madVR. Get it set up in conjunction with the Kaleidescape, the Apple TV, all that stuff. And I have a super awesome guest, not a stranger to the channel, of course, but Mr. Sammie Prescott Jr. is here with us to
Hi, how's it going?
through all this stuff. How's it going?
Pretty good. Busy, but I'm glad to see you got your projector in and gonna have a lot of fun with it. So
Yeah, you got yours recently too, right?
I've had mine over a month now, I think.
Okay. They started going to customers what end of June ish.
Yeah, I think I got mine maybe a week or two after they first started showing up for customers. So it was probably about 2 weeks afterwards.
What's your hot take?
It's good. It's definitely a good upgrade. It delivers on most of what I wanted to see. I do like the new fan profiles. That really makes a huge difference. Um, Outside of that, there's a little bit extra processing that wasn't originally with the NZ9. And this is more software processing. It is just sharper in general, but there is a little bit more processing also. Um, Outside of that, they perform well. So I think anyone that would get one is gonna ultimately be very pleased with it. I don't think anyone's gonna get one and not be happy with it.
Yeah, I saw very little so far, and I don't know if it's just want to see it, placebo, whatever. But I thought it looked sharper than I recall my NX7 looking.
But yeah, no, it's definitely it's definitely gonna be sharper than the NX7 for sure. Um, One thing I could say is I've seen probably about six of them now, and they're all very close in terms of performance. Not just I don't want to necessarily say performance, um, like overall quality control. So a
Okay.
lot of the issues that a lot of people would have with the NZ9 or the 8 or whatever, not that they're fully rectified, but they're much closer to being what they've always should have been.
Right.
So they're they perform better in that regard. And it's not as much, there's always going to be sample to sample variance.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that gap has closed just a little bit. There's always going to be some, but I would say you're going to find them more similar than dissimilar.
Nice. Cool. All right, we got some regulars. Let's do some shout outs and we'll get this thing fired up. So as folks start to filter in, welcome Julius, welcome Bill. Bill's rocking an NZ900 as well. So there's some of these in the audience. I think of folks very interested to kind of go through everything that we'll look at tonight. So the setup here, again, JV that's installed in the same place that I took the NX7 out of. We got a dual camera setup, so we will be looking here at. Let's get this flipped around. So that's my 163-inch 235 scope Seymour screen. Again, dual camera setup, and let's get this guy started up here.
So
right away,
have you not powered it on yet at all? This is the first power up?
No,
Okay.
second power up technically. Second. Yeah, the one thing I didn't want to do because I figured it would take a good half an hour or more, maybe. I probably spent about 45 minutes just getting the angling and the yaw and pitch and all that kind of stuff set
Right.
and getting the image squared up. So when we get fired up, I'll kind of go over what I've done so far, but very minimal. I really wanted to tweak more settings, stuff that I knew. I'm like, no, I'm
Right.
just gonna leave it alone. Leave it alone, and we'll go through everything. So we can see this lens memory. You can see the overshoot the blue above and below the screen. This is zoomed up and squared up, basically for scope operation. I think probably the madVR went to sleep. Let's wake that up. Get an image up here. We should be able to see menus. Yep, there's our menus. Let me turn the lights down a little bit. Folks can see the screen more than they can see me. Make sure that we are rocking all the right stuff here. Let's go. Yeah, Apple TV. Wake it all up. There's some madVR. So this is very much a hacked configuration right now. The room still has its own dedicated Apple TV, but I only have the one Kaleidescape Strato View right now. I did disconnect that from the living room, and it is connected down here. But my Control 4 stuff is not by any means ready to go yet. So
Right.
be doing things with a mix of all the remote controls and everything else. So yeah, I felt right away, like looking at this, tangibly sharper than the NX7.
Yeah, it's going to be, and a lot of that sharpening is also processing. So one of the things that people will notice with Sony's is Sony does a certain amount of undefeatable picture processing. Like you cannot turn it off. It's always doing some sort of processing, and it makes the image look sharper. This is outside of turning on things like dynamic focus optimizer for the projectors or reality creation or anything like that. It's just like an inherent amount of sharpening that's being done. They kind of did the same thing with this, but you can turn it off. Like you could fully turn it off. Like if, for instance, if you went into filmmaker mode, it disables all that processing. But one thing that you'll notice is, say if you have like a NZ9 and then you have a 900. If you were okay with, say, running the NZ9 on high-res 1 with a sharpening of 5, that, and you try to do the same thing with a 900, is probably going to be too much. Like it's very, very sharp. Like the amount of processing that they're doing for it is pretty significant. Like it looks over sharpened. So I wouldn't, if you wanted to run something like that, I would probably look at using like maybe 2 or 3, probably 2 if you wanted that level of sharpening. But it is noticeably sharper. It's just even without the processing, but the processing adds like an additional layer to it.
All right, so let's go over what I've done so far. All right, so I'll pull up the menus here. I haven't adjusted any settings, and again, the NV is kind of set to what the NX7 was doing. So there's a few things that we'll need to fix in here. Actually, I'm going to go right to left. So we have pretty much the same menu system. There's some new options, of course, in here. The information is basically the same. 1 hour on the bulb. Software version 1.02. It looked like the JVC AutoCal information was up on their pages for this, but I didn't even see a firmware page yet. So I'm going to go under the expectation that 102 is the one and only latest.
Yeah. So the firmwares that I've seen are, one was post-production, or I'm sorry, pre-production, which was like 0.89. And when I got mine was on 102 as well.
Second menu here from the right, trigger options, off timer, basically a sleep timer there. That was set to off by default. I set it to 4 hours. Eco mode off. I haven't done any network configuration yet. It's just running on DHCP. It is connected on wired Ethernet, but I will end up coming back in here at some point later to fix an IP address and get it added to the Control 4 configuration. I think this has a little bit more in Control 4 now. Like password options and things that need to be set.
Yeah, so there's a few things. One, the Control 4 driver for the 900 and 800 is not ready yet. Okay. So you can use the 9, but if you use the 9, you're not going to have things like picture modes like Vivid and a few other things. Additionally, the password is now encrypted. So there's effectively, you're going to have something added on to the password. And then when you add that onto the password, then you'll be able to connect to it via Control4.
Got it. I know Bill was working with Dan, who does my Control4 stuff today on that. So I don't want to get too much into that tonight. But definitely there's some more elements to go through. So for now, I'm just going to leave this as DHCP. There's no option right now or easy facility to get it set into Control4. I don't recall having to do like the network password stuff before.
Before it would have been, I think, just straight up just password with a capital P.
There wasn't.
No.
Now they're specific. Remote codes, high altitude modes, don't need this stuff. Hide mode, I'm not sure what this one is.
Okay, so hide mode, that's actually, don't turn that on yet. So get out of that menu. Yeah, just completely out of the menu, yeah. And press hide on the remote. Okay, so that is your native black floor. Assuming you don't have light shining on it, like if your room was completely dark, you have no light splashing back, that's your native black floor. So if you wanted to, you can hit hide with no signal, and you should be able to look at the screen and see if your eyes adjust to seeing any type of bright corners or anything like really sticking out. Like you might have one, since yours is tabletop, you might have one in the upper left corner, but you shouldn't have like significantly bright corners.
No, it looks pretty clean.
So that's one of the things that has improved. Like before, if you got a NZ9, there's always a chance that you're going to have one or two bright corners, if not more. Now, when I've been seeing them, it's either there's hardly any at all, or if there is one, it's usually in the upper left corner. If it's tabletop, lower right corner, obviously, if it's ceiling mounted, but it's usually not like egregious to the point where it's like, this is awful. So, and if you turn that on, what it will do, instead of making it so that it's your lower, like the black floor, it basically blanks out the laser. So if you ever had two projectors and you're trying to compare them, if you turn that on, it's going to completely turn the other one off. So that way you can truly see it without having additional light coming from the other one.
Nice. Yep, we've done that a few times, around Michigan here. Right. Backup settings, import, export. I presume that's to a USB drive.
Correct.
Factory reset. We won't do that. And then software update is not online. Still USB flash drive based once new firmware comes out. All right. Menu options. We can change the default color. We can move the menu around the screen a whole bunch of places. These are pretty much, I think, the same they've always been. Signal display, that's the overlay when you get mode changes and input changes, stuff like that. Logo.
I would suggest in your case, well, it depends on how you're going to have it set up ultimately, but I usually turn that off because one, you don't need it with a video processor.
Yeah.
And especially if you're going to use laser dimming, when that comes up and then goes away, that impacts the APL of what's being projected, and you see it, like you see the entire screen change because of that menu.
Got it. Most of the time as well with the zoom up scope screen, that information is off or partially off screen anyway to begin with. All right, so we'll turn that signal display off. Logo is fine. That should start up, and then language English. I want to change that. All right, so here's where I have messed around a little bit as I was kind of getting things set up. I did make 3 lens memories. I did a default 16:9. I did a zoom up 235, and then basically copied them in cascading form. And then I made one specifically titled here as madVR, which was the one that will kind of customize for that. So I wanted the option to be able to have a lens memory for comparison's sake, madVR in, madVR out type of stuff. So all I did was regular kind of lens actions here, focus, zoom, and shift. I did actually do the pixel alignment as well. I found that the red, I needed to move the red up in the pixel adjustment here, the red required one tick up, basically vertical one, but blue didn't need anything.
That's good. Usually what I've seen so far on this, obviously depending on the orientation of the projector, but say it is tabletop, like in your case, usually what I've been seeing is that on the far, I think it's tabletop, if on the far left side, like the last 2 rows, blue needed to be moved right, and then you needed to move red up around the center, and then on the very far right, if it needed anything at all, it was usually like a 1 click of red. But for the most part, most of them have been like pretty tight. One thing that you can do is you can, if you wanted to, you can totally deconverge the panels so that you have a separate red, green, and blue. And then you can go through and focus them to make sure that they all can get equally as sharp. And if you do that and then you converge them again, that's as sharp as you're pretty much going to get it. And then you could do zone alignment instead of whole panel, because that way you could do it on just the small ones that actually need it.
What's the high level process for that?
So in your case right now, what you would do is you would move horizontal to 2 and vertical to 2.
So basically, so essentially purposefully misalign them?
Purposely, yeah. And now you switch to blue, and then you go -2, -2. All right, so now what you would do is you would leave this menu. It's going to be misaligned, but then you would actually go into focus, which is going to bring up its own internal test pattern. And you will go up to the screen and then you focus it, and you'll be able to see the red, green, and blue. And then you just basically focus it to try to get them all as equally as sharp as possible. Okay. And then when you put them back together, you're not going to really get it any sharper than that.
So out of here and back to the regular focus?
Yep.
All right, let me walk up there. Make a tweak. Solid right there.
So now that you've done that, you have basically reconverged them and then do any panel alignment that you need to.
All right, go back, pixel.
Though generally when you do focus and convergence, you want to make sure that the projector's been on for a while. So probably after you do all your final alignment and like tilt and yaw and everything, after it's been on for a while, then go in and do this, and you should be like good to go.
Let me check this red line one time. Yep. All right. Yeah, I'm sure I'll spend some more time down here in time to come, even probably getting a little bit even finer with my zoom alignments and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was something that Chris had told me about like a while ago, like a long time ago. And ever since he told me, that's pretty much just how I've always done it afterwards. And it worked so much better. It worked so much better.
Yeah, nice trick. All right. I didn't adjust any masking. I haven't done any screen settings yet, so this is something maybe we will go through. And then I'm not using currently not using the zoom mode actually. I think we had talked about this a bit when it came to the madVR, whether you just have the projector zoom or whether you have the madVR just output 4096. And as
Yeah,
long as
if you have the madVR output 4096, it's going to use the full panel anyways. The purpose of zoom is, say for instance, you need extra width because you're going from 3840 to 4096. Your height stays the same. So by using zoom, it uses the full panel. That's useful, like if you cannot send it 4096, but if you can send it 4096, it's going to use the full panel anyways. The only time with the madVR that you would zoom is if you're sending it 8K and you want to use the full panel, because the HDMI on the JVC, they say it will do what is 8K DCI 8K. Is it 8096? DCI 8K is 8192. But the JVC accepts UHD 8K, which is the 7000 resolution. Still the same vertical height, which is the 4320, but you don't have the extra width. So DCI 8K is the 8192. JVC specifies in their documentation that they will do 8192 by 4320. HDMI on the JVC will not accept that resolution. So the only way to actually display that resolution is to send it 8K and then use zoom. So in the case of a madVR, that's the only time that you really should use zoom, is if you want to display full pixel width of DCI 8K.
And is the capability there, I guess, any merit in wanting to have the madVR like scale to 8K or output 8K now that we've got an HDMI 2.1 output device and a HDMI 2.1 input device? Is there merit to that, or are you doing that in your setup?
No, I'm not doing that in mine. Mine, I'm sending 4096. I can send 8K. Like I might do it for testing purposes at different times, but for the most part, there's not really any reason, at least for my seating distance and the content that I'm sending it, I don't do it.
Got it. All right, so we can leave this to auto. All right, so let's go back to screen settings then. So because we're running the madVR, we're not looking, I presume that we will want to stick to the idea of sending BT 2020 SDR. That's how I had it running before, and I think that worked pretty well. So we don't want to use certain HDR aspects and theater optimizer aspects, but we still want to put in the screen code and the size and those elements here. Is that right, or these are defunct?
Well, you can still use them. When it comes to theater optimizer, that's really more for, okay, so it does a few things. One, it addresses the bias that is inherent to screens. So like in my case, I'll measure a bunch of different projectors and I'll measure certain screens. And if it's the same projector and I measure it on one screen and then take the same projector and measure it on another, I'm going to have a slightly different result because they have an inherent bias. What those codes are is technically red, green, and blue. That's what those numbers are for. And that's what it really addresses. So you can put it in, it's not going to hurt it. But when it comes to like theater optimizer, a lot of that's used for HDR.
Right.
So I would say still put the code in. It's not going to hurt it if it's there.
So let's do that. So we'll turn screen adjust on. That'll give me the ability to put in the codes. And I was just looking this up. Offline. There is a table on JVC.com. They call it screen adjust mode table, and it does have the new projectors in it. Looks like the numbers are pretty much the same as they have been. So I've got a Seymour AV. It's center stage XD material, and these slash tray of braces is like very hard to talk through. Seymour AV center stage XD is number 129. So I don't do that one yet. Right. 129. Boom. Okay. And then same thing here, right? Maybe we should put our
Yeah, you would put your screen aspect, and they did add scope. They added that a while ago.
Yep, this is cool. So this was not in my NX7. This might have been in the NZs perhaps, but
yeah, they added it. I want to say that was either added in firmware 2.1 or 3. I think it was 2.1 though.
All right, so scope screen, and we're looking at 163 inches, so I guess we round it down to 160. And then gain here goes by 0.1. I've technically, I think the center stage XD.
There, I guess not. Maybe he disconnected momentarily. I'm not really sure. Well, hopefully he'll be back soon. I'm not sure. Maybe outage, kick the cable. I'm not really sure. Let's see here.
Kick me out, I think.
Yeah, you just dropped. You just like,
all right,
poof, gone.
Browser problem. All right, we're back. Let me get the other camera back in here. Okay. All right, we're back. All right. So screen adjust on center stage XD more 129. We have 163-inch diagonal, cinemascope aspect ratio, and we'll leave the gain at 1. And theater optimizer grayed out because we're not in any kind of HDR mode, presumably right now. Right now, masking. Now, how do you feel about? Do you use the mask when you're zoomed up into the scope just to cut off the light overspill and stuff like that? Or do you consider it, do not bother you?
I don't watch it like that. So, I mean, in my case, because I have an anamorphic lens, but generally I would just probably leave it off. The only time I would use mask would be to say I wanted to fix some type of distortion or fix something that was zoomed off a little too much that I could potentially see, then I would use it. But just for your use case, I wouldn't do anything with it.
No difference.
I'll just leave it as is.
All right, so we're good here then, I think, on the install mode. We did lenses, focus, pixel adjustments, leave the masking, no need for anamorphic, no lens here. We'll see what happens. Maybe the next piece, last piece of the puzzle.
I think that would probably be your best. There's a few things in my theater that I feel are like my best upgrades. One is a video processor, is just having one, whether it be when I had a Lumagen or now that I have a madVR. That was by far probably the best investment for a projection setup, followed by an anamorphic lens. Like an anamorphic lens really, it alleviates all of those questions or problems, and it's just so much better. I like it.
All the pixels and all the light.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, let's go. I don't know. What do you think is the best way to go about this? So we want to we'll need to set up some NB things, but then there's also the menus in here. Maybe we, for the sake of continuity, maybe let's walk through some of the menus. We'll just keep going the way that we've been going. So input levels, currently set to auto. I think in the prior setup in the NB, this was fixed to video. There was a preference to fix it rather than leave it to auto.
Yeah, generally you would fix that to video. And then the color space you set to RGB.
So we got no black screens or anything like that. So essentially that's what the NV was outputting for the moment, or for the current moment.
Right.
3D setting. I'm not a 3D user, so nothing to mess with in there. Auto picture mode select.
So this is where you're going to choose what picture mode you want it in all the time. Since you're not going to use the HDR flag, whatever you choose here is what it's going to just automatically default to regardless.
Now,
Honestly,
Vivid. Go ahead.
Honestly, it kind of depends on how you're going to set it up. So in your case, until you get a calibration on it, I would say just use natural. And then once you get a calibration, that depends on who does it. If I come out there and do it, then I would be setting it to like user one, for instance. But for right now, I'd say just you leave it at natural.
All right. And then no, 3D doesn't matter. And then again, unless I were to bypass the NV at all, we wouldn't.
Yeah, if you were to bypass the NV for whatever input that you're on, then you could kind of worry about that. In your case now, it should never even hit this page. It should never even hit the HDR picture mode.
Yep.
So for right now, you can leave it at just frame adapt HDR.
I don't recall there being 3. If that was in the NZs, or is what's?
So they added in firmware 3.0 for the NZs, 2 and 3.
Okay.
Wait, it might have been 2.1. It was when they added filmmaker mode. So that might have been 2.1.
Is there an inherent fundamental difference between 1, 2, and 3?
Nope, they're all the same, just extra memories.
Just gives you options to. All right, so we'll stick with natural. EDID, shouldn't have to mess with this. DSC.
That's display stream compression. So when you're on EDID A, you're using the HDMI 2.1 EDID.
Okay.
Hold on, I have to let my dog out. I'm still here though. So display stream compression is where it will basically fix the number of lanes. Because normally what it is you have 12 gigs at, well, if it's 48, you have 12 gigs and 4 lanes. When they do display stream compression, what it does is it generally limits that to be, depending on what it is, it's usually going to be 6 gigs and 4 lanes. So it compresses the incoming stream. So that way you can pipe through more not more bandwidth. You can send through a signal that you normally wouldn't be able to accept. So sometimes if something says, oh, I support this, you might be able to send, 8K 60 at 24 gigabits because it's part of the 2.1 spec.
Okay. Is it better to turn this off with an NV, or does it matter because it wouldn't use it anyway?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I like mine's on, for instance.
Okay. And then interesting, HDR 10 plus can be globally disabled, but we won't. Actually, does HDR 10 plus matter?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So in your case, for using it with the NV, if you want to send 4K 120 or if you want to send 8K 60 or 24, you need to have EDID A on. If you're never going to send it 8K and you're never going to send it 4K 120, you can choose EDID B, which drops it down to HDMI 2.0 EDID.
Okay.
And it actually has honestly better stability. So one of the things that I'll tell people sometimes if they're coming across a lot of problems is try EDID B. And a lot of times when they try it, it fixes all their problems, especially if they weren't using like 4K 120 or something.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to leave it on A because I'm curious to try out Motion AI. at the 2.1 frame rates and that sort of stuff. Right, filmmaker mode. This is new. This is new for me. This was not present on the NX. We've got an auto and a manual.
So I would set it to manual. The reason why, and this is another reason I suggested turning off the menu that pops up in the upper right corner for the signal, because, well, I think this one actually might pop up in the center of the screen. But either way, if you're sending it a movie and it detected the filmmaker flag, every single time it comes up, you're going to get a message that says, oh, this supports filmmaker mode. Do you want to turn it on? If you leave it on auto. But if you turn it to manual, it doesn't do that.
Does it use, are we using it or are we not using it?
Well, you're not using it right now because you have it in natural. You could use filmmaker mode if you wanted to. You could use any picture modes as you like, actually.
So that's a deliberately separate option. That wasn't
right.
in the, that it wasn't, shoot.
Yeah, it's not in the connection setting for last for auto pick mode select.
Okay.
What you would do in that case is you would set it to use last setting and then choose filmmaker mode, and then that way it will always be in filmmaker mode.
Got it. Okay. All right, so that's everything here. All right, and then lastly, content type, auto, or here we can fix. Now these settings are not.
Yeah, so
install it to the lens mode, right?
Correct. So what this does is this automatically changes the dynamic range based off the signal input that you're receiving. So for instance, if you change that right now to HDR10, all of a sudden, all the picture modes that you're going to see are going to be HDR10. And then it just stays in HDR10 all the time, right? And you could choose between the SDR or HDR picture modes. You can leave it at SDR all the time if you wanted to, or you can leave it in auto. Ideally, in your case, if you're not using the HDR flag, you can just set the content type to SDR.
And that's what I presume we'll stick to out of the NV settings. So we'll stick to natural. All right, so here's where there's some new stuff.
Yeah. So LD power, that is your laser power. So, and this is with all projection. Projection is just reflected light, even black, right? You can't make black out of nothing. So what happens is you have an utmost kind of like innate black floor where it can't go any lower. And that's where it can measure like 0.004, 5, 2, whatever. As you turn up your laser, you're pumping out more light. You cannot do it just to white. So if you turn up your laser to 100%, you're increasing everything across the board, even black. So the higher you run your laser, the higher your black floor is going to be. The brighter it's going to be, but that's the trade-off. You get a brighter image, you get a higher black floor. As you turn your laser down, you get a dimmer image, a lower black floor. There's other things that are involved, but that's effectively what your laser power is. How it works in the 900 and the 800, they changed their fan curves. So for you with the NX7, you are probably used to low, medium, and high. In firmware for the NZ series and firmware, it's either 2.1 or 3. Pretty much most of the changes are in 2.1 or 3. But one of them, what they did is they changed it to a slider for 101 steps. The reason it's 101 steps is because they also give you 0. 46 is equivalent to mid or medium. 100 is equivalent to high. In the previous NZ series, so like the NZ9 and the NZ8, what happened was if you went from 46 to 47, the fan would kick up to the same speed that was needed at high. On this one, what they did for the 900 and the 800 is it now works in stages. So now it's like 46 to 66 or 67 is the same fan speed. And then it's like 67 to like 86 or something like that is another fan speed. And then the last fan speed is 88 to 100. So now you can run it higher at a lower fan noise. And technically, I would say like 87 is still quieter than the high of, well, even high is like the 100 is still quieter than the 100 of your glass projector. It's a very quiet projector.
Yeah.
This is preference. There is no right or wrong. It just depends on kind of what you want to do. In your case, I would say, since you're probably going to be playing with it a little bit, maybe run it at high or at 100 and see how you like it. See if it's too loud for you, see if it's too bright, and just kind of go from there. Because I know the one thing that you were missing the most was light.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really curious to get the meter on here once kind of we got things set and see where we end up with nits. Because the NX was at like 51 is what the madVR set to right now. Yeah, you can definitely hear the fan as this slider goes up. I can definitely hear the fan. Even at 100, I could probably be comfortable with this in a movie. I think this is still quieter than the NX was in high, and I ran the NX in high lamp.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be quieter than the NX was at 100. And if you want to see the fans change, one thing to note is that even though those are like roughly the stages where the fan curves change, sometimes you have to like drop it down and let it sit for like 30 to 45 seconds before it actually like kind of spins down. If you want to kind of force it, like say right now you're at 100, if you drop it down to like 46, like immediately, and then just let it sit there for a second and then start ramping it up, then you can hear the fan curves change again.
It just went down. So what you said around 80, 86 was a break?
I think it's 86 is the fan curve right before the highest one.
Let's see if I can hear it. All right, there's 86. Yeah, it picked up a little more.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. Like when I measured it, I used REW and a mic, and I actually just sat there for like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, just measuring like, okay, how much louder is each step? And each step is roughly between like 0.8 decibels and like 1.3 per step. But it would really like go up one, like maybe like 2 something decibels once you got to like certain points. And that's where it kind of ended up landing. So it's, I want to say it's 66 and then 86 and then 86 or 87, and then it goes 88 to 100. So you have like basically 3.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely, like you said, set it right for now to get going and watch some first content and whatnot, peg it at 100 and see what I think. And if I want to go quieter, I'll probably still hang pretty close underneath the next breakpoint still to try to keep it as high as I can, but make that breakpoint. All right.
Yeah.
This is new as well. Dynamic control, off, high, low, and balanced. This is Iris.
That's the laser dimming.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's different, like different levels of aggressiveness, except for balance. Balance, the way that one should be working is it's effective up to a certain point, meaning that if your scene has a certain APL or a certain amount of bright content in it, it does nothing. There's no laser dimming. And then once it hits below like a threshold, that's when it becomes active. I kind of, on the NZ8 that I had, I kind of went back and forth between running it at low and off. On this one, I pretty much have been using balance, and I'm okay with it for the most part. Like, I don't mind balanced at all. It's pretty good. It could be better. Like, everything could be better. They probably need to tweak like where it actually kind of stops taking effect, but it's pretty good.
All right, I'll stick with that then as well. Aperture. So this is the default.
So that's the iris. So basically, like how I was explaining earlier in regards to like your black 4 and like lowering light or increasing light, this kind of does the same thing. It basically puts something within the optical path and it clamps it down. So by using the combination of something like the aperture and laser power, you can get like really high contrast and a very low black floor. So if you wanted to run, for instance, at 100, but you wanted more contrast, you can essentially start to close down the iris. Again, it's total preference. I think I have a bunch of different settings on mine and LUTs and stuff in the madVR. But I think right now for the main mode that I use, I think I run mine at like -6 because I wanted more contrast. And then for my HDR picture mode, I think I run it at -3 or 4 or something like that.
Okay, I'll start with that as a mostly what we're watching down here tends to be newer movies and it's HDR content.
Now, one word of warning about this is not uncommon, like it's happened before with JVCs, but it seems to be happening a little bit more, which is kind of not the greatest. The iris seems to be getting stuck. So for instance, like you could have it say 100, or I'm sorry, 0, and it may not actually be 0. It might actually be set to something lower and it's stuck. So generally the best thing to do for anyone that gets one of the newer JVCs, the aperture will be at 0, cycle it down and make sure that it actually dims, and then cycle it all the way back up and then set it back down to where you want it, to make sure that it actually is working and making a change and it's not stuck. Cycling it generally will fix it. I haven't heard of a case where cycling it hasn't fixed it, but it does appear to be something that's happening a little bit more often. Like I had it on a pre-production, Chris had it on a pre-production, I had it on one that I calibrated from someone else. A few other people that I know have had it. So it's definitely a thing. So just be aware.
Yeah, looking at the image on my laptop, you can kind of see the steps when I was changing it. There's a very much more pronounced effect in the room that's visible, but I can see each step has a bit of a tweak to it. Okay. Any default adjustments, contrast, brightness, color, tint, or leaving these at 0 till?
I would leave them at 0. I mean, you can set these based off of a test pattern until you get a calibration. But once, like, what is this month right now? It's about to be, or is it September? No, it's not September yet. Like, probably after September, after CEDIA, I'll probably be heading out your way. So, like, in the case of, like, if I calibrate it, those are going to be 0 anyways.
Got it.
But in your case, before calibration, you can use brightness patterns or contrast patterns and set this if you feel that you need to. But you should be fine with 0.
We'll leave them alone then. All right, color profiles.
So this is where you can set it to either BT 2020 normal or BT 2020 wide. So you had an NX7, which did not have a filter. Now you have a cinema filter. The cinema filter is going to basically take you from, let's just say your projector is going to be somewhere between 85 and 87% of P3 coverage. By using the filter, it's going to get you to 98 to 99% of P3 coverage, but at the expense of 36% of your light.
Yeah.
So in your case, I would set it to BT 2020 normal.
Take the light. Yeah. I thought the NX7 did have it did have the option between 2020 normal and wide with the the filter moving in and out.
I thought the NX7 didn't have it.
Yeah, the 5 lacked it.
I know that maybe okay, it's the NZ7 that doesn't have it. Yeah.
But with the NX, I was running it without the filter again to kind of capture as much light as possible. All right, so color management, not going to touch this without calibration. Color temp.
So color temp on the JVCs is generally 7500K is going to measure closer to 6500K. 6500K is generally too warm on the JVCs. So out of the box, you're generally better off choosing 7500K.
Interesting. Let me go back just to look at the.
Yeah, it's usually just that it's just too warm.
Yeah, it does make the blues a little. Definitely can see it in the blues, like the Max, Paramount Plus icons. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave the rest there. Gamma 2.4.
Yep, 2.4.
And then we'll leave any of these.
Yeah, that is for, you could use this to effectively like fix like the 1D, effectively like the gamma. So like sometimes people will like do a JVC and they'll do like gain and bias. It's like, yeah, that's wrong. Don't do that because you just ruin the contrast. Just fix the gain and then come in here and adjust picture tone. And you can use it and you can get it like pretty much completely flat. Right now, you need meters for this though. Like you couldn't do anything with it, but that's really what it's for.
All right. And then, all right, here's our E shift. So question of the day, turn it on or leave it on or turn it off?
I have mine off actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have mine off.
All right, we'll go off for now.
I mean, it's definitely preference. I just leave mine off. Like depending on what you're looking at, you might see almost like a little fringe on stuff. You have to really be close up on the screen. With your size screen and how far back you're sitting, you could probably leave it on. You're not going to notice anything. Only reason like I notice it is because I spend more time standing right in front of my screen than I do like sitting down.
Yeah.
And this is where the graphic mode is going to become like a thing of, okay, how sharp is too sharp? Because again, there's additional like actual processing, like picture processing, not just native sharpness of the lens and the new panels. It's actual picture processing. Preference, complete preference. I found that when I was running high res 1, that it was way too sharp. And I actually had to drop it down to like 2. If you run high res 2, you can probably leave it maybe a little bit higher unless you start seeing, again, over sharpening. Certain things that you might notice it in would be, the first thing I noticed it in, I noticed it in general, but the thing where it really made me kind of like step back and say that's out of control is 1917 when he finishes the whole part where he wakes up and then he walks around the wall and the flare goes off and there's that very textured wall. That thing was like super crunchy, very sharp, and it's like, yeah, this has to like dial back some.
So what's the in the NX? This option was just like standard or high res, and I thought we just made that choice whether we were displaying predominantly HD or 4K content. That's not the same. That's not the decision.
No, it's the same. It's the same thing. Okay. If you're not displaying something, like if you're generally in an HDR picture mode, by default, it sets to high res 1 by default. And if you're not, then it goes to standard. That's how it works by just out of the box.
Okay. So because we were in SDR, it came in standards. But you're suggesting high res 1, turn this down a tick.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's preference. I'd say look at just different content that you're familiar with, especially people's faces, older people's faces where they have wrinkles in their faces, anything that's very textured. Look at that type of stuff and then kind of decide what you want to do.
Okay.
The other thing that you could look at is stuff with hair, whether it be an animal with fur or just, you know, someone with like a lot of like a close up with hair. You can start to see edge enhancement effectively.
Okay. And then NR noise reductions.
I leave all those at 0.
NR. What are the acronyms?
One is mosquito noise reduction. The other one is it block noise reduction? I'd have to look. But that's one is noise reduction, one's mosquito noise reduction, and the other one I want to say is block noise reduction.
Okay. All right. So graphic mode, high res one, enhance, and all right, and then motion controls.
So you have clear motion drive. That is going to be your pull down for just motion. So when you're sending a signal, you have like 3-2 pull down, 5-5 pull down, stuff like that. I generally would leave that at low for a clear motion drive. That's how I have mine set. And then motion enhance, which is basically motion interpolation, I turn that off. Especially if you're going to be using motion AI. Well, if you're going to be using motion AI, turn clear motion drive off as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll do that now then, because that's something I want to mess around with. All right. So that is our menu settings for the JVC. Let's go to the madVR next, and then we'll talk about sources. Let's sweep the. So just look at the comments here really quick. Folks chatting about NVR, some Kaleidescape discussion. Not seeing any questions. Folks have questions, fire them up. Yeah, this is interesting too. Yeah, keep in mind Strato seems to be adding some sharpening as well. Consider the source. All right. So the NV's fired up here. And again, I haven't touched I didn't touch anything in the NV menus relative to how the NX7 was set up. So I don't know if there's any particular place we want to go. I am updated.
I'll be right back. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. All right, good point for questions. Bill's asking, how does the mask feature on the projector work? So masking, here we can demonstrate it actually. If I go back into the menus here and I go to the mask, turn it on, and then I'm going to add the bottom mask. Watch the bottom of the screen and you'll see eventually, got to get it pretty high. You should start to be able to see some of the bottom gray going away. Come on. There it goes. Now I'm taking away, basically moving an, I think it's like a physical mask in front of the lens inside. So it's an overspill, overscan presenter, basically. Without the NV in particular, when I was doing lens memory stuff before, I would be inclined to mask out any potential light overspill that might have gone above and below the screen. So depending on your setup, you may need to use that or not. All right, back here. I am updated did check the firmware before we came in here. I just forget where the 1818015.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yep. All good.
All right. Resolution, that's fine. 10 and 12, that's fine. RGB, that's good. Limit range TV, that's fine. Black level, white level, neutral, that's good. So how this works here, measured peak luminance and desired SDR luminance. And you kind of don't have to do it because you have a JVC, but it would require using the HDR flag. But since you're not using it and you're only using one picture mode, what the purpose of this is, you put in your measured peak luminance. That is what determines tone mapping, because that tells, it basically says where the compression needs to happen, because that's all tone mapping is it's just compression. So you put in your measured peak luminance, and that's what the tone mapping is going to be based off of. Then you have desired SDR luminance. For setups that only use one picture mode, someone might want SDR to be lower. So you might say, for instance, say you're capable of, I don't know, 120 nits, and you want that all for HDR, but you want to be at, like, say, 14 foot Lamberts, which is like, what, 36 or something nits or something like that for SDR. You could use this to digitally clamp down the luminance output for SDR. That's what it's for. Most people generally want them to be the same. So the desired SDR luminance, you can only lower. You cannot raise it higher than whatever your peak is, because that is your peak. In your case, I would say probably just keep it the same for both of them. Okay.
But we need to measure this up.
Yes.
So I've got my meter, the Lux meter. This was for folks, I think this is like $25 or so off of Amazon. This is the one moment that I've been really keen to see what we measure here. So 51 nit. I think I was measuring, geez, what was it? I forget the lux reading that I was getting off of it. It's lux times gain
divided by
pi, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we need to kick it into HDR mode?
Nope. You just need to measure peak white. So on your NV remote, hold down the info button.
Yep.
And then click show for full white field. All right, so now just measures the center screen and get whatever that lux reading is.
Right, let me get that. $333.
All right, so then it's going to be 333 multiplied by your screen gain.
Treat that as one. 33 times 1 divided by 3.14. 106.
All right, so then you just go ahead and hit the little back button on the, yep, and you could hit it again or just hit the other menu button and then just scroll that up to 106.
So fundamentally, this is throwing twice as much light then as the NX7 was, slightly more than. And then we commit with green. Boom. Okay. Does this projector need any kind of break-in?
No.
Will the lasers settle down in any way?
No. I mean, with bulbs, that was more a thing. I guess depends on who you ask. I guess it could be argued that maybe lasers, but typically no. Like once you turn them on and start using them, it's pretty much going to be the same. JVCs do have they have what's called gamma droop, and well, a lot of projectors have it, but you will notice it. I notice it a lot with JVCs because, like, for instance, I'll calibrate one and measure it, and then you can come back just a little bit later and measure it again, and it will have slightly changed. That doesn't really stop until a pretty significant amount of hours. Whereas like other projectors, like say for instance a Barco, you do a Barco and you can come back multiple times and it's like exactly the same. It doesn't change. It will change over time, but not within hours or days, where JVCs kind of are a little kind of weird like that. But it's not something worth waiting for in terms of like getting it set up or calibrating or anything like that. It's not worth that.
If somebody were to change their laser dimming level from 100 down to 80, we're trimming brightness, so you would want to remeasure and readjust this value, or
correct?
No?
Yes. No, that is correct. Yeah. So if you, so right now you can get over 106 nits, for instance. Like if you took that measurement again without having the iris clamp down to -3, it's going to be brighter.
Even brighter. Okay.
Yeah. Because you, like, since we put something in the optical path,
yep,
we're reducing light. Like your screen is what, 160?
Yeah, 163.
What's your throw?
18-ish feet, I think.
18-ish. You could probably get upwards to about 118 nits, maybe a little bit more.
Just based on the
just on the aperture.
Iris. Okay. I'll probably play around with that as well, just to see what my actual numbers are with the color filter, without the color filter, and that, just to understand the impact.
Yeah, if you want to do it, I would say measure it with 100 laser, aperture fully open, and that's going to be as bright as it's going to get. And then if you want to know how much using the filter is going to be, just take off 36% of that.
Got it. All right, so that's display configuration. So really, other than adjusting for the brightness of the projector, no major changes here.
No, the only major changes that you're going to have are redoing your screen boundaries. Once you get everything dialed in, you're going to have to redo your screen boundaries. Outside of that, since you don't have an anamorphic lens, and assuming obviously nothing's ever straight, right? Like even if your projector is perfectly straight, your screen might not be, or vice versa.
Yep.
You could maybe do some geometry correction, but most likely, considering you don't have a lens or in your projector's tabletop, you probably won't need it. Everything else is going to pretty much stay the same.
If anybody does have NB questions, now's a good time to throw them out relative to the projector setup. There is on the channel, under the video processors playlist, there are a bunch of other NB videos where we've gone over a bunch of this other stuff to kind of arrive at where everything is running right now. So yeah, all right. We're not going to tweak overrides. Just want to make sure. So this is the tone mapping, current tone mapping setup. So again, no need to really kind of tweak. This is basically what you would recommended before it.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I still pretty much run the same settings, like exactly.
And then motion for now. I had been running motion AI off, but I'm very curious to try it again. Anything actually? Should output frame rate, should this be tweaked?
That if you're going to use motion AI, leave that at auto.
Okay.
Based off of how the menus work, scroll down to movies 24p. Yeah, go ahead and turn that on. Okay, so how this works is motion AI is only was effective 2 different times. When it comes to movies, it needs to be a 24 hertz signal. If it's sports, it can be a 60 hertz signal. Once you turn it on, you choose your preferred frame rate. It's either going to be 60, 120, or 48 if the projector supports it. In your case, it's either going to be 120 or 60. I think you can do 48, but only if you do 8K.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Model is basically how it's trying to do the motion interpolation. It changes roughly kind of based off of speed. It's not something that most people are going to like dive into a whole lot, but more people find it pleasant with using things like drag and mouth, maybe big 3 or big 4. It just kind of really depends on what you're seeing. For instance, if you use Alpha 8, you might see a little weirdness around text or scrolling text or something like that, like a little flutter. But then if you use a different one, you might see, depending on what it is, like a little bit of something that looks kind of like a small, very, very small crosshatch. It's few and far between that it comes up, but it could come up. So the model is fully just preference. Most people kind of lean again towards drag and mouth or big 3, big 4.
Is there any difference in the versions here, or just always go to the higher version?
No, I mean, it's kind of how slow it is and just slight tweaks to that particular engine for it.
With a Mark II Extreme, does the cost of the algorithm matter very much, or
No, it doesn't. Not with the Mark II Extreme. With the Mark II Extreme, you can pretty much run anything that you want. Now, if you have like, say, like a Mark I, that it might struggle a little bit when you start going to things like drag and mouth B2, big 3, big 4. But if you have a Mark II, you really don't have any problems.
And does the NV tell you, like, if you set a bunch of settings that could be overtaxing to the GPU power that you have, is there any indication of that, or is it just a matter of
No,
you're running?
what would actually happen is, say for instance, you turn on every feature that it has, like every single feature, you set everything to max. What's going to end up happening is, as it starts getting, I guess you could say, somewhat taxed, it will start running things at a lower level. So say for instance, you had everything set to like 20 and insane and the highest it will run. Effectively, it's going to just start to scale some things back. And depending on how much stuff you have on, it might drop some things off. But that's meaning that you are running everything full tilt all the time, if you're doing that.
Got it.
The look, think of that as effectively like the strength. The higher it is, the smoother it's going to look. And then you have, like when I play around, we're not playing around with it, but when I use it or do some testing with it, I don't use the pre-built-in ones. I use custom because I just know how custom works. But that's where I can choose like the blur strength, the width, like how strong it is. Like I can really like do very fine settings. I would say for most people, you probably don't need to go that far. Most people are pretty satisfied with like low, balanced, or high. Some people even prefer insane. Insane plus, it only is for 120 hertz mode though. So you would have to run 4K 120 to use it.
Got it.
Sports works for 60 hertz content. And Kaleidescape menu. So you know with the Kaleidescape, how we tell you if you want to eliminate handshakes and use motion AI and stuff like that, to set it to 24 hertz and don't do display mode changes.
Yep.
You could effectively leave it in 24 hertz all the time, And say, for instance, you didn't want to use Motion AI for movies, but you wanted it on for the Kaleidescape menu, you can just turn that on
Do that.
and leave the other ones off. And when it sees the Kaleidescape menu, it will kick into like, it'll turn on Motion AI just for that menu and run it at insane. So it's like super smooth.
I think this is even potentially more valuable with the V, because if you're running a V, you don't even have, the wall doesn't even scroll and run the same way. It's a little more static. So it's almost probably a little more advantageous to go ahead and just set it to 24. Set the K menu to 24 and let it run.
How are you liking the V?
Quite a bit. So obviously I haven't used it down here at all, because I haven't had a projector until today for the last little while. I think the Dolby Vision movies on the V in the living room, we watched probably 5 or 6 movies. We were cranking through the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. So we watched a lot of Phase 3, Civil War, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man. I forget all the specific ones. Thor Ragnarok, Guardians. And I probably haven't watched that many movies off the K in the living room, but running them in the living room with Dolby Vision, I don't think I've ever seen something look better than that on the G2. So I'm really so that looked fantastic. So anybody buying the thing for a living room setup, I was really impressed. I don't know what I'm going to do full run yet, whether I'm going to buy another V and just have one in each zone, whether I'll rebuy a new Terra and pump up my storage. I think for now I'm content to just stick with the V only and not add extra storage and not add a second player. Just run that V in here and continue to use the new UI, the limited UI. We'll go to it in a minute and can kind of show it off a bit.
Yeah, so like I sold a few, and then I had got one and that I was going to order for myself, and then just ended up selling that as well, just because I'm not 100% certain what I want to do yet. Like it's like, okay, I don't necessarily want to replace both. I like my C where it's at. It works fine. And then it's like, well, but then I can't really take advantage of the Dolby Vision unless I'm specifically putting in on that unit.
Yep.
And then at the same time, I was also considering like, okay, this is something that I would use as a puppy dog as well. So it's like, how does that work on linking it? And I don't know. I'm just kind of at a crossroad of like, I don't know what to do yet.
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of the same. But I'm content just to stick with one for a little while, and for the sake of being able to comment on the standalone experience, I'm good just using the one unit standalone. And really, the way that we watch stuff as well, that the downloads are so fast, and it can keep 10 movies. That's plenty of choice for us to. And what I've been doing with the Marvel movies is like keeping the next 3 resident. The one thing I'm not sure what I want to do is change the downloads now. Obviously, I was downloading Dolby Vision when it was connected in the living room. Now that it's connected in here, maybe this is a good question as well. Kaleidescape is basically saying, if you have no reason to care otherwise, always download the Dolby Vision version of the film. But in this case, Dolby Vision isn't doing, like madVR isn't doing anything special with the Dolby Vision metadata. So is it actually advantageous to just download the HDR version, or the V, having downloaded the Dolby Vision variant, will still send HDR10 HDR to the madVR, because the madVR doesn't report as a Dolby Vision capable device or player.
Right. So it's going to put the HDR10 base layer anyways.
Right. So you might as well download that. And I have seen a couple folks, actually one customer of mine comment that he felt in his theater that running HDR was better than running Dolby Vision as HDR output. That there was a little bit of it was a little punchier. I think he was commenting specifically. He felt the Dolby Vision movies were a little dark. They came off a little darker.
Interesting.
So, I don't know. I think what I might do actually is test that myself, pick a movie and download both the HDR and the Dolby Vision. And then in the menu, you can choose to play a specific format and try and A/B it and see what the difference is. All right. I don't think we have to, well, actually, let's go to the Kaleidescape next. I don't think we have to do much else in here. All of these settings should be fine. They're all basically what we set before. So yeah, good to go. Let me just verify one thing. I forget which. On the remote control, what was my motion AI was magenta, NLS was cyan. Okay. Yeah, I'm really curious to try the motion AI stuff because to me, I felt with the 60p output, there was a frame pacing, noticeable like frame pacing hitch. Or a little stuff.
It kind of depends on what you watch, what you like. There's certain things that make motion interpolation super noticeable. It really depends, but I find that 120 hertz works pretty well. I liked 100 when I was doing a lot of testing for it. I preferred using it at 120 hertz than I did at 60 hertz. Mm-hmm. If I had to choose between the two, I would choose 120 personally. If you have a projector that will do 48 hertz, I would definitely choose that for sure, because that works very well. It's just preference though at the end of the day.
Yep, and actually missing some questions and comments here. Oh, Mike's here as well. Welcome, Mike. Yeah, talking about there's a lot of discussion on the Kscape owners forum right now, or over the last few weeks, about this. So, like I said, it's definitely something that I'm curious to try. Download both variants and give it a shot. So Robin's asking, do you turn off JVC tone mapping when using the madVR? Yes. So we were running. If you rewind a little bit, we went through all of the. Oh, we got to go this way. We went through all of the JVC menu systems, and basically, I'm running the same thing here, continuing to run the NZ900 the same way with the madVR Mark II Extreme that we were running it with the NX7, which is the NV will always output SDR, BT 2020 SDR. Now, actually, one other question, I suppose, because now we've got HDMI 2.1, is there any value or benefits in changing any of like the color compression, or everything's still like 422 is still a preference?
Yeah, no, that's still going to be the same. Like, you're not going to change any of that.
All right. Okay, let's go. Let's flip this. Let's go to Kaleidescape. Let's talk about Kaleidescape here. And then I need to run.
More to Robin's question. Since you're basically what you're doing with a video processor is you're doing like a HDR to SDR transform. So you're basically taking HDR and you're changing it or putting it in a container of SDR to display it there. So all the tone mapping's done. The way he set up his projector is always an SDR because that's what's being sent out from the madVR. When you choose to do something like use the HDR flag, you can send it to an HDR picture mode, but you have to set up the JVC properly so that you turn off effectively PQ, which is HDR, so that it makes it thinks it's gamma. So you're basically kind of tricking it into thinking that, oh, this is just another SDR picture mode. So you never are really in a position where you can even use their tone mapping. Like, you just can't even select it because of you're in an SDR picture mode effectively.
There was one question too about the NV in 3D. Are the 3D abilities worth the extra for the Pro versus the Core if you have an extensive 3D library?
That's hard to say. I mean, it's going to make it look brighter to you, but if you don't have any problem with the luminance level that you see now, then I probably wouldn't do it myself personally. But if you do feel that I wish this was brighter, say like you watch Life of Pi in 3D during the scene with the whales. Sometimes like I've looked at that on projectors and it's like, I wish this was brighter. In that case, if my projector gave me that experience, then yeah, I would be all for it. But if you already have a pretty bright projector, I would say you're probably good where you're at.
All right, let's do this. It's probably going to look a little ugly to start, but I want to try to share the screen. So we'll look at some of the Kaleidescape settings. So all the Kaleidescape settings that matter the most are going to be in the web UI for the setup. And again, all I did was plug it in. So I haven't readjusted anything or kind of reallocated anything. So just the other windows that I have open here, I'm only on one screen. So stuff we're looking at, I'm trying to do in the background here. I got the Kaleidescape app running to control the Kaleidescape. I got my Control 4 stuff there. All right, so here is the Kaleidescape web UI. We're going to go to settings. Let me actually close some of that stuff down. Okay. So video capabilities and status. Nothing's playing right now, but we're reading everything. HDR. So here, HDR formats. Dolby Vision is crossed out. HDR10. Your display supports high dynamic range content in HDR format. Dolby Vision content will be converted to HDR10. All right. Let's cancel. Dismiss out of here. All right. So output behavior. So this is a couple of things we want to change. Allow display mode changes, but presuming that the madVR NV should be a more capable image scaler than the Kaleidescape itself, we can leave this or reset this from allow all display mode change or allow display mode changes to use external scaler. And in this case, as it is, Kaleidescape would change between frame rates, but it would output native resolution. So if we watch an HD movie, we'll let the NV do the scaling. You agree with that setting?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say use external scaler for that one. Yeah, right. That one, you got to change that.
So this, I was curious because I haven't seen the standalone UI in widescreen mode yet. So we're going to flip this. And actually, let's go ahead and commit this now. Let's see what it looks like. Does it need...
Oh, no, don't do anamorphic. You do letterbox.
Oh, the letterbox. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anamorphic if we have the lens.
Actually, even if you have the lens, when you're using like the NV, you would still set it to letterbox.
Oh, really? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So that definitely made them. It made the images. Let's go back to 69. I just want to look at the difference one more time. I'm surprised it makes the posters smaller.
Yeah, it's probably looking for like more content to like be able to just be displayed all the way across the screen.
The cool thing, I guess, with this setting or this mode would be is if you can see all the movies in the strip.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna do this one more time. I feel like the posters look a little nicer, actually.
So, but you don't have with the NB, you're not scaling or stretching 16:9, right? You're leaving that untouched.
Correct.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's not here. Transmit. Wait, no. Content type metadata is only about whether this needs to be this needs to be back on for the NV so it can send
Correct.
the flag to tell it whether it's in the menus or not, but that's not for the interesting. I just want to look at the comments if Mike's here, if he's got any comments about this. I guess I'll have to download more movies and then we should see the strip go wide to the edges of the screen rather than being in the 16:9 content space. I think because right now NLS, interestingly, it was reading as NLS off right now. This is when that's NLS on. So that doesn't look right. That's just widening everything.
Right.
So I wonder.
I mean, it makes sense that they're smaller when
Yeah.
you're choosing 235 letterbox.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then let's do this OSD refresh rate. We might as well run this at 24 now. 4K. I don't think there's any need to change. We don't want to, there's no reason to turn this down. We want to leave this automatic, use as much HDMI bandwidth as possible. High dynamic range format. Automatic should work just fine because it's already detecting that it knows
it's not a Dolby Vision display.
It's not Dolby Vision, so that doesn't really matter. I think some folks hooking these to flat panels had been playing around, and there's quite a bit of discussion about standard versus low latency and player versus TV LED and all that. HDR color format, better with the NV to do the prefer 4.4 or 422.
Actually, on this one, I've seen it work two different ways for different installations with the NV and different projectors. I run it at prefer 444 or prefer 444. I have seen where that has increased handshake times or time for the movie to start playing, which is weird with certain projectors. I've noticed it more with Barcos for some reason.
Okay.
And generally for Barcos, like I would say, leave it on automatic. With JVC, I generally just run it at prefer 444.
All right, and then color or bit depth.
I usually choose 36. Or at least that's how I have mine set up. Wait, is that how I need to look at mine real quick before I say that.
This is one reason as well that I feel inclined to go ahead and stop now. Like effectively using the matrix switching of the AVM90 to share the Kaleidescape between both rooms, because the settings and the format just wants to be slightly different. And
oh no, I have mine set to prefer 444, prefer 30-bit.
30. Okay, yeah, so the content's all 10-bit. Cool. Commit that. Give it a second. It's going to renegotiate a bunch of stuff.
If what did you put for the preferred frame rate?
Prefer 24 hertz.
Okay.
On
Okay, cool. Yeah.
You know, interestingly now it widened the menu again. So I think it wasn't doing a full. Now we're looking at the CinemaScope menu. The posters are a little bigger, and the content is definitely outside of the 16:9 space. So I think maybe it needed a resync in there.
Handshake, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So that's pretty much it. Now, oh wait, audio. I needed to change that as well, because upstairs, I was outputting PCM stereo. That would have been not great down here when we actually have an Atmos system. So audio wise here, we want to go bitstream for sure. Commit that. And then that should be all for the settings. Nothing in lighting shade control, nothing in control. I got my fixed IP address for my network. Bitstream audio back to Atmos. Oh, excuse me. And then good to go there. So now we can do a little, let me remove this. Let's go back to this view. Let me mute the audio so that we have known we are seeing Kaleidescape 4K 24. And at the risk of actually, let's go. Just go to Empire Strikes Back. Just see how quickly we get our image up.
So does the menu like transition in the movement seem smooth? Like pretty smooth, or at least fast?
Seems so, I think. So that was definitely a faster resync time. We'll go back and I'll move around a little bit. I don't have, I'm just controlling it right on my Mac screen, so I don't have a good way to, I don't have a good way to feel a good tactile adjustment. I don't have the halo down here, and
Okay.
Stuff's all in the wrong rooms in Control 4. But yeah, we're looking good here. Scope image. I don't want to play the movie too much. We'll get
yeah. Get taken down.
Yeah, they happened to Chris and I, and we were doing the Lumigen. We did the long Lumigen screen. We got blacked out for a period of time. So let's see if I can scroll up and then. Yeah, it's pretty smooth.
Which is cool because technically the menu's in 24 hertz.
Right.
So that's the benefit of that within Motion AI. When you turn on that Kaleidescape flag, you could have it in 24 hertz, but it will give you like the feel and the look of it being in how it looks when it's in the 60 hertz menu.
Yep, for the benefit of those good syncs. So Mike's got a couple of comments here. There's a bug that made CinemaScope covers look rather worse than the regular 16:9 covers. Ooh, interesting. Okay, I'll keep an eye on that. I would say my gut would tell me that they could look better. So definitely keep an eye on the next KOS.
Well, I heard that the resolution of this menu was for the Strato V was 1080p. Is that true?
Yeah, Mike can comment on that as well. There was essentially a trade-off made in that it's a limitation in the chipset. So the menu is natively rendered at 1080, but they scale it internally and output it as 4K.
Oh, okay.
So let's see. It's expected that the covers should be smaller because you'd be zooming your image up to fill the height of the screen. Once they're zoomed, they'll be the same as a 16 screen of the same height. Yeah, I think it needed to resync to adjust back. So the first time that we were tweaking back and forth, it wasn't I don't think it wasn't handshaking fully. Yeah, internal graphics plane is 1080p and scaled to 4K. It doesn't look bad by any means. But I think they could be maybe a little sharper. Mike was asking, HDMI capabilities was only showing 30-bit compatibility. Can the NV accept 36-bit?
Yeah, that's why I actually went and checked what I had my Kaleidescape set to, and it was actually set to 30.
Cool. So that's that. So yeah, I'll probably end up. I think what I'll end up doing is downloading. Maybe I'll just do it with Black Panther. So if I actually let's look at that. So if I go in here now and I scroll down, there was yeah. So here's where you get the choice. So I presume, and Mike, I could correct if we're wrong here. If I force a download to the V of both the Dolby Vision and the HDR10 version of Black Panther, I should be able to come to this menu and force playback of one or the other, and like kind of jump into and out of some scenes and check them against each other. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to kick off the download Black Panther. So if I'm just in the app here, manage downloads, I'm going to hit download, and I have Dolby Vision already downloaded, includes extras, 4K HDR10. All right, I'm going to go ahead and download this while we're doing stuff. Okay, download scheduled. So now if we go back, let's go here. Come on. I'm using my mouse to control a touchscreen interface. It's not the best. Okay, Black Panther 0% completed. I'd grab my phone and do it, but my phone is the other camera right now. My iPad is upstairs. Okay, so that's Kaleidescape set up. We'll download that. So we'll have more to report back on coming up here, talking about, again, the difference in the formats and some of those options. I'll probably end up remaking the video that I did about HDMI syncs and trying a bunch of the different settings as well. Why don't we do one more thing here? Let's jump to the Apple TV.
So I'm curious, in the time that you've been running the projector, have you noticed the noise at all?
No. If I listen for it, I can hear it, but it's kind of like living next to the train tracks.
Right.
All the time that we've been talking, it wasn't perceptually present to me. All right.
How do you feel about the brightness that you're getting now?
It's yeah. I'm very eager to try some more stuff out. I think one of the movies that I want to download and maybe take a look at is Elemental. We watched that recently. I may re-download Doctor Strange as well, because I was really, when we watched Doctor Strange upstairs, I was really noticing the orange spark effects and stuff of their magic. I think that had a really profound difference from watching movies down here formally to watching them on the OLED and the effect of HDR there. But yeah, this feels like the room is definitely more illuminated with a white menu and all the light coming off. All right, so Apple TV, just to show here, we're running latest software. I am on the I don't want to do that. I've been on the developer beta profile, up to date on the developer beta profile. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the 21.9 mode come yet, even with this update.
I did hear that they moved the subtitles though. Have you checked that out yet? I don't know if I haven't checked it, but I heard somewhere that the subtitles have been placed in the frame.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't. No, I don't think we've really watched much of anything that had subtitles showing up. Not lately anyway. I finished the last season of The Boys, but that was some weeks ago now. It's the last piece of content I think that had more subtitles in it because it has the one silent character. They do have the skip back subtitles are in here, and there's the option as well. So the show on skip back. Mike, we need this one. We need this. We need this bad.
We need an HDR like movie wall.
Oh yeah, that too. Because that's what we're setting here, right? So in the Apple TV options, I run in the theater. In the living room, I'll run 4K SDR with match frame rate and match dynamic range on. In the theater, because we're largely watching HDR content more often than not, I'll default to 4K HDR down here, but still leave match content on. Technically, it could turn this off, I suppose. Do you leave your dynamic range
mine's actually set up just like this.
Yeah,
because I would say 90% of what I watch is HDR, especially on Apple TV. So I'd rather just have it in HDR all the time, 422, and then leave on match frame rate and dynamic range.
Yep, that's it. And Atmos enabled down in the audio formats. If you really wanted to go, and this is what I showed in the other video, I'm sure the 900 can achieve the same thing. The Apple TV is capable of like literal zero sync time, instantaneous sync time. It's pretty sick. But in order to do that, you have to run 4K HDR at 24 hertz, and then start a piece of 4K HDR content, and you'll have with a projector, with the madVR, etc., you can achieve zero sync time.
Yeah, that would probably be the only difference between yours and mine, is I run mine at the 23976
up here as the default.
Yeah.
There's really probably not. But you need. So do you? But you don't usually run the motion AI, so you just take you trade off.
I just take the trade-off.
Menus. Yeah. Oh, iPad. No, gotta keep going. So here, we can go ahead and demonstrate this. So 4K HDR at 24.
But now that I am fully on board with Control 4, I can tie it to a profile so that when the Apple TV is selected, I could turn on Motion AI if I want it. So.
Oh yeah.
I would say that's probably been the other most meaningful upgrade to my system is Control 4.
Yeah, liking it?
Oh yeah, I love it.
All right, Motion AI is on right now. Let's just verify. Yeah, Motion AI on. So it's smoother. I think there's still a little bit of a difference between the true native UI, but it goes a long way to helping it. Let's go home. It's got to be something that we recently. Yeah, here we'll just do Avengers. Boom, in the movie. That's so sweet. Versus what can literally be dozens of seconds and then right back to the menu.
Yeah.
That's exactly. We need the HDR menu in the Kaleidescape, especially to facilitate playing scripts and being able to have scripts boom, boom, boom with instantaneous syncing and no black screening in between.
one thing I do with my scripts is I break them up into, I either section them off all within one script, or I kind of break them up into different scripts, but I'll have it where, like, okay, this one starts off as SDR, then it goes into HDR, or I'll do something where it's like, okay, these ones are SDR with Atmos, then we'll go into HDR with Atmos. I don't mix like DTS with Atmos either, because I have a turn off and it has to dump the audio codec.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, it will like start to play and then it will drop. And it's like, oh, this is now this, and it will like click, and then it will start everything. So I have to break my scripts up like that, and that helps, but it would be so much better for playing quicker if that menu was HDR. Like, it'd be so much better.
Yep.
But I do need to actually wait. Outputs is menus in Dolby Vision format. Really? Oh.
Yeah, let's go back. Let me flip.
Oh, that's interesting. If that's the case, I would replace my C with V's immediately.
So here we're in the menu. We can verify it right here, right? Incoming signal info. 3840, 2160, 24 hertz, 444, 10-bit, transfer function, SDR.
Well, I unfortunately do got to take off. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to text me or email, whatever, call.
Yeah.
That's cool.
This is great. This was awesome. Thanks so much for joining, especially for the last minute kind of pull together. Hopefully tonight, I'll stay on for a little while, folks, but hopefully this stands as a very useful reference for kind of for everybody setting these things up. There's going to be a lot of cores coming soon and on a lot of new projectors, hopefully as well.
Yeah, should be fun. But thanks for having me. I'm sure I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thanks, Sammie.
All right. See you.
Bye. All right. Let's make sure we hit any last questions. Jeffrey was asking, share script files. If you want to share scripts, a good place to do that I found is either the Kscape Owners Forum or there's a Kaleidescape users group on Facebook as well. People usually sharing stuff there. Mike will say it might also be because you have enable display mode changes turned on. But we can tinker with that. Let's see. All right, so if we go, I'm gonna go back into the settings. Minimize, let's go minimize display mode changes. I'll hit OK here. Go black for a second. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. We have an HDR menu. Transfer function HDR. Boom. Okay, so now let's here, let's get do this. Let's get rid of this. And let's Black Panther's downloaded as well. So let's go back here. And we'll just go back down to Star Wars. Will this be? Now, so not instantaneous. What are we looking at here? Oh, now the frame rate is 60. Incoming signal info. All right, let's try something. So that's interesting. That's interesting here. So if I've got minimize display mode changes on with 24 hertz menus, it's playing an HDR menu at 24 FPS, but when I start the content, it's putting the content at 60 FPS. So when I start the movie, we're going black because we're changing from, boom, we're changing from 24 to 60 hertz. So we still need a tweak in there. Yep. Yep. One little tweak there. And we would have the ultimate combo. All right, so I'm going to set this back to allow display mode changes with external scaler, and then now, oh, yeah, we'll save it. That'll stop playback. Thinking through. Some resyncing to do. It's doing a whole bunch of renegotiation. All right, so now we're back to SDR menus at 24 FPS. If I resume the movie, we keep 24 FPS, but we're back to HDR. Yeah, so cool. Well, on behalf of all of us, that would be an awesome tweak to be had to get that combination of dynamic range and frame rate. Yeah, Jeffrey's saying when to minimize display mode changes. Now the menu is Dolby Vision. But you'd still want, especially on the flat panel, you would want your movies outputting. Although I suppose you could argue that you could get away with it. You could get away with the movies at 60 FPS because the TV is going to do the like reverse pull down. It'll nullify the 3:2 frame rate cadence, or pretty much most every TV should. But still, I think always preferable to match the content as much as possible. Oh, Jeffrey. Okay, yeah, your Stanfield. Okay, cool. Didn't know that relationship between who you were on the forums and who you are here. Cool. Awesome. All right, what else do we want to see, folks? Anything else? Otherwise, wow, it's midnight already. Probably need to be wrapping it up. I gotta try to hit the tonal in the morning. I jacked my back, unfortunately, during my workout this morning, but it's feeling better. I'm gonna try and hit it again. Hit it again in the morning, and hopefully be feeling all right. All right, let's do one thing. Let's do one other quick little sanity check here. So if I go to Black Panther now, there we go. Play version. Okay, so Dolby Vision HDR10. So I'm not going to do this now because we can't do the. I can't play the content or we'll get taken down. So this will have to be something that I play around with separately, do a little A/B and kind of comment back on in the future. So what was the ideal combo? The ideal, actually, you know what? Let's do the ideal combo then. Yeah, the ideal combo would be what Mike says here, but that's the missing piece. Run the theater in 60 FPS, let the content play in 60 FPS, and let the display device do the pull down. So I think we can achieve it, actually. We can achieve the zero sync. So let's go back with one other slightly modified set of settings. I'm going to go to minimize display mode changes, but I'm going to put it back to 60 hertz menus. So we'll commit this. It's going to go black because we're renegotiating the settings. We'll go ahead and pull up the madVR info. Boom. Okay. So now we're looking at an HDR menu, 60 FPS, 422. Interesting. 422 12-bit. I thought we were set up for 10-bit. Maybe some of the other settings changed. No, prefer 30-bit. Oh, but we're in the menu. It's not going to do 4. That's for content. Okay. 4K, 60, 422, 12-bit, BT 2020, HDR. Now, if I play Empire Strikes Back, this should be instant. Well, not quite as instant as the Apple TV, but man, that's fast. That's real fast. Regardless, we're talking a couple of seconds. I do wonder, Sammie's gone. I'd be interested to get Sammie's take on this, though, because you want the movie playing, you need the movie playing at 24 FPS to try to use motion AI. So I guess you could do this, right? If you wanted to minimize display mode changes, you didn't have the NV, you weren't doing motion AI, this set of settings would be pretty solid. And you would get the small, ultimately the smallest, ideally the smallest amount of black screens that you could get. So here we're looking at minimized display mode changes. That's what gets you the HDR menu, and then, or Dolby Vision menu, and then prefer 60 hertz. And your content will play at 60. So if they could just do a minor tweak in here to get the opposite flip, that would be pretty sick. So I'm going to go back to the settings that I was on before. Allow display mode changes with external scaler and 24 hertz menus. Let me stop the content first. I think with the NV, oh, didn't change. Use external scaler, 24 hertz. It's still pretty quick. It's quicker than it would be otherwise, but with the NV, this and wanting to experience motion AI, I think this is a better way to do it. So the only thing that we're changing then to go into content is SDR to HDR. So we'll try this one more time. Resume the movie. Go black for a second. Boom. And we're up. 24 HDR. Yeah. Pretty happy with that. Boom. Cool. All right. Jeffrey's saying he doesn't have an MB, just testing the V. Yeah, on the G3. Yep. So you could do that. Run everything 60. And although the real impact, I think, on a flat panel, it's all pretty negligible. I think because your flat panel sync times are so fast anyway. Like you're talking a second or two. It's just down in a theater space with a projector. If you're resyncing everything, dynamic range, frame rate, color, pixel formats, colorimetry, all that sort of stuff, it can take a long time to sync, like 15, 20 seconds potentially. It's a long time to be sitting in the dark. All right. So I think oh yeah, try to test with Billy. And now we got 60 FPS content. That even throws another monkey wrench into the equation. So I think we're pretty well set here. Although I do have to, one thing that I still need to do is make sure to readjust my this stuff, the screen assistant. This should pretty much match up pretty closely, but I'm sure there'll be a couple pixel boundary adjustments that I need to make here. So this I need to do kind of like right up against the screen. And I probably will still turn the masking on. I'm not a big fan of like the light overspill. And if you do use the masking, you can stop the overspill. There's really no overspill left and right, but the light overspill top and bottom, the masking would take care of that. So it's, I think, generally better to do the NV boundaries, or actually no, do the masking first and then the NV boundaries to basically line up with the edge of the masking. And it's pretty straightforward. So yeah, and then hopefully get down here and watch a movie. I'm really curious to see some movie content. So I think we're going to end the stream here, do a little bit of final work, and be back. Hopefully take a bunch of this stuff and turn it into some short form videos as well. Again, hopefully this proved useful for folks looking at all this equipment, some of the particulars of setting things up. It's really appreciate guys like Sammie, guys like Chris, and their friendships and their willingness to kind of hop on and explain all of this stuff and give people a good baseline and good opportunity to kind of pattern off of for setting up some complex things. So definitely, if you're looking for a calibration service, those are the guys that I would recommend. And hopefully one or maybe both of them, who knows, will be through here, doing a full cal on this projector. But I like what I see so far. The brightness is tangible, twice as bright, 2 times as bright as the NX7. I think this is a sharper image. I'm really curious to see some content on it. So a lot more to come. Of course, if anybody wants to buy any of this stuff, got to say it, I'm a dealer for Kaleidescape. I'm a dealer for JVC. And I have a lot of friends that I can make referrals to and hook folks up if there's something somebody's interested in that I can't provide. So by all means, please do consider reaching out if you're interested. I've had a number of folks actually reaching out for consulting calls. I just help somebody kind of set up their Anthem stuff a little bit better. We're talking about home theater bypass and stuff like that. And those sessions are always a lot of fun, I think, and valuable for both the person and fun for me. So by all means, if that could be helpful to you in your home theater journey, let me know. If I can hook you up with some great deals on equipment, I would love to do that. If I can connect you to some other folks otherwise, for some great deals, I'm happy to do that as well. So have a great night, everybody. I'll be back soon. There might be a little bit of a lull coming up. We've got a family vacation planned. Should be a good time, but hoping to. There may be more community posts than content into the next week or two, but we'll see what I'm able to put together before we take off. So have a good one, everybody. Thanks so much. Coming back for more home theater discussion and fun. Thanks.